Hi everyone and welcome back or to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name's Ashley. In today's video, we're going to be talking about surrendering your career to God. So I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm just going to get right into it. I do have my phone here just to keep me on track and to make sure I don't miss anything. So the chapter that we're going to be referencing is going to be Mark 8, just to kind of put that out there so you know. But let's start, as always, with a little bit of a backstory. So if you don't know, I did mention in my previous videos that last year was the year of me separating from the Air Force. And not only was it the year that I was separating from the Air Force, it was the year where I was truly stepping out on faith and trusting God when it comes to my career. I really wanted to move into the fashion world. That included starting my own business, Paul's Vintage, and more styling experience. I really just wanted to enter into more styling. So that's a little bit of a backstory on where I was at last year when it comes to my career. Why did I want to separate from the Air Force? Where did I want to navigate into after leaving the Air Force? And so then that brings us to today. So, our more present time. So the end of last year, September to be exact, I started Paul's Vintage. That was a big step of faith because I was leaving the Air Force and I was leaving that security net. I was leaving, knowing how much I'm going to get paid, when, and now just kind of being like, I may get paid this much one month. I may get paid that much this month. I may not get paid anything one month. So I was really taking a gamble, a risk, if you will, when it came to my career. But I knew mentally I was not happy, and I knew that I needed something to shift. And I felt so strongly that God was urging me out of the Air Force. Again, if you haven't seen my previous video kind of talking about where I've been, go watch that, because I do go a little bit more into depth about why I felt like it was time for me to leave the Air Force. But long story short, I knew that I needed to leave. I knew that there was somewhere else I was meant to be, and I had always been drawn to fashion. I've always loved fashion, and so I said, okay, my contract is coming to an end. I'm going to trust this feeling. I'm going to trust my gut, my intuition, God, and I'm going to, leave the Air Force. Doing so, I started Paul's Vintage in September, and the first month it was beautiful. I was off of this like super high, if we will, for starting my business, doing the thing that I said I wanted to do, accomplishing a goal that I've had for years, about starting my very own brand. So September was a month of all just excitement and just joy that I finally did it. October comes, and now we're moving into, okay, like it's been a month, things are kind of slowing down. I'm trying to navigate what do I need to do next to try to get more, views and more people to the website that will purchase. Then November comes and I get 0 orders, okay? 0 orders. And so now I'm a bit defeated because I'm thinking to myself, did I make the smart decision? Did I do what I was supposed to do? Because like I'm living off of savings at this point, trying to pay my bills until things get more financially stable. And so that's where the doubt and the anxiety began to come in the month of November. And I was just kind of like stressing, and it was a lot, honestly. But December came and I said, okay, you know what? There's nothing really good coming from me stressing and doubting. If anything, it's more negativity. So I'm going to surrender. I'm going to let it go. And as simple as this may have sound, of course, it was more to it, but that's simply just a mind shift, okay, that happened. I just simply shifted my mindset. And that is number one, if you're taking notes about what to do when it comes to surrendering your career. It really starts with a mind shift. You deciding, am I going to live in constant fear and doubt and just worrying, or am I going to trust God? And so I was like, you know what? November, I did that. I did the worrying, I did the stressing, I did all of it. December came, like the first week of December, and I said, you know what, I'm just letting it go. I'm letting it go. And I'm going to choose to trust that God is going to bring whatever is meant to bring. The second thing I did, which really could be number one, is I began to pray not from a place of survivor mode, not from a place of begging, God, please help me. I began to pray from a place of authority, from a place as if I was already where I wanted to be. So I began to, instead of praying, God, please let the business take off, I began to pray, my bills are paid on and before time. The business is bringing a financial profit. People are coming to my page that is going to not just like the things that I'm posting, but be interested enough to go to the website and purchase. I began to really just pray from a place of authority and less of fear and survival mode, which I think is very key. The third thing I did was I began to do my part. Something that I heard recently on TikTok is you're not going to say, oh my gosh, I really want to, catch this bus. God, please let me catch this bus, and then walk as slowly as you can. You're going to pray, but you're going to run. You're going to run as fast as you can to that bus, praying to God along the way as you're running as fast as you can that somehow you make it to this bus, right? Because if you pray, God, please let me make this bus, or please let me catch this bus, but you're not even running, you have no sense of urgency, it's like, okay, you not even looking like you really want to catch this bus. And I think that that is like a key when it comes to our goals and dreams. Yes, praying is beautiful, it works, prayers works, I know firsthand, but we also must do our part. And so my part looked like I got a mentor, and I took a risk on that because I had reached out to my mentor probably early last year before I actually moved back to California. I mean, moved back to New Orleans from California. But like, it was a lot of just bad timing, and we really wasn't able to get on the phone and sit down and talk and me to kind of pitch if she could be my mentor, because it was just so much going on. And I kind of just like didn't think about it anymore. And then fast forward, I'm like, you know what? Let me reach back out and let me try to see like if this could be possible, because I do need some guidance, and I think that she would be the perfect person to help me navigate this, because she's an entrepreneur. She's had her business for over 15 years. Like, she has so much wisdom. So I just, was like, you know what? I'm going to reach back out. And of course, the fear was trying to come in my mind, like, oh, you don't, look, why would you get a mentor? Why would she want to help you? You've only been, 3 months in to starting the business. Just enemy lies. So I was like, you know what? No, we're not going to do that, because if anything, this is the perfect time to start when you're so new, before you get to a year, 2 years in, and now you have to backtrack. So I just took a step of faith, and I said, the worst thing that can happen is she says no, she doesn't want to be my mentor, she doesn't want to help me, and we move on. Long story short, she responds and she's agreed. She's like, absolutely, I would love to help. And we've been doing calls from December every single Tuesday, which helped me, ultimately gear into my launch that I happened January 17th, which we're going to talk about. The second thing I did, which was moving by faith and not by sight, is I made a goal. I made a goal for how much money did I want to make from my business in the month of January. So I told myself, okay, the first week of January, just strive to make $50. $50, right? What this is doing is kind of taking away that pressure of, oh my gosh, like I need to sell all these items. And it's just creating, just focus on $50. But because you're trying to sell $50, you have to be present. You have to put yourself out there to get it sold. So with that being said, I then moved into going live. I started selling on live. I think I went live like 3-4 times, okay, in a week. I started to make sure I was consistent with posting Monday through Friday on social media, at least. And I made sure that I also started to sell on different platforms. So instead of just selling from my website, Paul's Vintage, I also began to sell off of Depop, because Depop is where it is really known for vintage sellers, people that are, reselling their clothing. It's a known app. It gets more, eyes on there than my website that I just started. So I also started selling on Depop. What this did was it again just doubled what I could have ever imagined. So the first week my goal was $50, okay? And I made $10 from going live. And of course it could have been like discouraging, oh, I didn't hit my goal, but I think for the purpose of the plan I had, it was less about making the $50 and more about showing up, because now I had this goal in mind. The next week of January, I set the goal to make $100 because I wanted to double each week. So the first week, $50, second week, $100, third week, $200, just doubling it every week. The second week roll around, I still am present. I'm going live, I'm posting, I am putting my things on Depop, and literally I put these boots on Depop. Not even 24 hours had passed, and these boots got over 15K likes or 15K views. And not only did I hit my goal for $100 the second week of January, I made $270. So I doubled it. And if we're going back to the first week of January, my goal was to make $50. So if we would have added the first week plus the second week, I would have had about $150. However, I doubled that just in the span of 2 weeks. Now, yes, on the contrary, $270 is not a lot of money that you can use to pay your bills and rent. But this was letting me know, okay, what it looks like to step on faith, what it looks like to just stop being so scared and to trust that God has you. Not only did I sell on Depop and off of live selling, I also sold on the website. Someone, I guess, saw my TikTok video and purchased from the website. I don't know them. They weren't family. They weren't a friend. I even asked my mom, like, hey, did you share my website with anyone that you know? And she said no. So someone also came to the website just purely for me being consistent on TikTok, because that's where I have the link on TikTok and Instagram. So it really showed me, okay, this is the power of being consistent. But again, when it comes to surrendering your career, I really believe that you have to have all three of these things. You need to surrender and let go and just trust God, okay? That looks like simply changing your mindset. Stop moving from a place of, oh my gosh, but what if I don't have enough? Oh my gosh, what if I can't pay my bills? Because the truth is, I left the military in May, but I officially separated in September. So I haven't been getting a consistent paycheck since September. And it's now January. But every single month before the bills are due, I have the money to pay the bills. I have the money to pay my car note, my car insurance, groceries. I've had more than enough. 1 month, I think I talked about this in a previous YouTube video as well, but 1 month I got $900 in my account from the Air Force. That was something I had been waiting on, and I kind of had lost faith and thought, okay, I'm not going to get this money again. Basically, the Air Force will reimburse you for your travel once you leave. So I had sent everything to finance. I sent them my receipts. I sent them everything for how much gas I used, the Airbnb I paid for, all of this. But I hadn't heard back from finance in months. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm just not going to get reimbursed. Thank God that I had the money to pay for it. Randomly, they didn't send me an email saying, oh, your ticket has been guaranteed. They didn't send me nothing. Randomly, I just see this money deposit in my account, and I'm like, okay, this, after further researching, I set a timer because I don't want to be too long. But after further researching, I realized it had to have been from finance. So that's just another testimony. And so again, moving into the month of December and January, I'm like, why am I stressing when God has shown me that not only has He made a way, but He's doubled my increases in many ways than I could have imagined. So again, when it comes to surrendering your finances, you really do want to start with just changing that mindset and letting it go, trusting that, you know what, God has me. And that brings me to our chapter, Mark 8. I'm just going to quickly go to the Bible app. And I think I'm in the Message version. So we're just going to do that. But again, you can feel free to use, whatever version you would like. Okay. So I want to actually have two chapters you can use. I want to start with Mark 8 verse 21, where Jesus is talking to the disciples and He says, do you still not get it? He's talking about the fact that the disciples have now argued. They're in the boat and they're arguing because they're upset that they didn't bring enough bread and fish. And Jesus is like, I just fed 4,000 men off of what? 2 loaves of bread. Then I fed another 5,000 men off of how many? When we scroll up to verses 6 and 10, it says, "So Jesus told the crowd to sit down on the ground. After giving thanks, he took the 7 bread, broke them into pieces, and gave them to his disciples so they could hand them out to the crowd. They also had a few fish. He blessed over the fish and told his disciples to hand them out as well. The crowd ate its full. 7 sacks of leftovers were collected. They all were full. Over 4,000 ate this meal with just a simple of, again, seven loaves of bread, fed 4,000 men. And not only did they feed them, they had leftovers. We know in another chapter, it talks about the 5,000 and how God took what seemed impossible and fed them, and they had leftovers. So we fast forward to verse 21, and Jesus is telling them, like, do y'all still not get it? Like, I am Jesus. I can do what seems impossible, but you must believe and trust me. I also like Mark 9 that I was reading. For Jesus says, Mark 9 verse 23, he says, if there are no ifs among believers, anything can happen. Now he's talking to a man who has a son who is demon possessed and is having these seizures, and he's going up to Jesus and he's like, please, like, if only you can help my son. And Jesus is like, if there's no if, like, I can do what's impossible, but we must believe. And that just reminded me, like, girl, walk out on faith. Look at all that God has done. Why would you now think that God won't be able to supply your bills, provide for you? Look at all these provided continuously and continuously. So I don't want this video to be long. I'm gonna wrap it up here. But the third blessing that I received, so a little recap. I doubled my income. I doubled my income goal for Paul's Vintage. I stepped out on faith, and I also got a job when it comes to styling. And that, of course, happened by me putting myself out there. I was filling out resumes and trying to work for different brands. One brand reached back out to me and said they would love to have me. And so now I am doing that pretty much full time. I'm working with this brand to style and work at their store. And it's something that, again, came out of just being consistent. I was doing my resumes, but I wasn't like constantly checking. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do the work, I'm gonna put it out there, and wherever I'm meant to be, that's where I'm meant to be. So if I could give you any piece of advice, if you are moving into a new career and you're a little bit afraid, you don't know if it's the right decision, please move out of that mindset of fear and move in trust and letting go. Read on Mark 8 and Mark 9. If I can give you any verses, any chapters, it'll be those to really put you back into a perspective of God has me. Number 2, continue to pray. And number 3, continue to move, continue to show up, continue to be consistent, continue to do the work, and trust that God is going to do the rest. So that is all for this video. I hope that made a little bit of sense. I am so blessed. I'm so thankful for what God is doing. And if he could do it for me, I know he could do it for you. So as always, if no one has told you, I'm here to tell you that you are doing enough. I am so proud of you, and you got this. Until next time.